I want to thank you for coming. My name is Michael Davis. I'm a public information officer, proudly serving with Great Basin Team 3. We've got a whole lot of information to share with you. I got a good lineup of experts to talk to you tonight. First off, we're going to hear from Colin McKellar. He's our incident meteorologist. We have a weatherman for our incident that is doing forecasts that are specific to the fire. We've got our F band. I better stay over here. We've got our F band, Mr. Eric Valdez, who will tell us how that weather will impact the fuels and what type of burning fire behavior we can expect. Then we'll move on to Mr. Trevor Riding. He's an operations section chief, and he will tell us what activities have taken place on the fire and what is planned moving forward. Then we've got Steve Janke. He's an air operations section chief. He will speak to you specifically about the aircraft that are being used on the incident. Then we have special guest, Mrs. Mindy Waters. She's from the Department of Insurance, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about what her technology, you got to love it. Miss Waters will talk to you about what her agency can do for you, or how she can help you with your insurance needs if you have a claim, not just for this fire, but for anything that's in regard to your homeowner's insurance. We'll hear from our agency administrator, Mr. Chris Waverick, and then we'll have our incident commander, Mr. Brett Waters, close it out, and then we'll open it up for questions. We will stay here for a good long while in the question and answer phase. Once we break up, we've got some maps on the wall, and I and everybody else who can will stay here and be happy to talk to you one-on-one up here at the map, and try to make sure that we meet your needs and get your questions answered. So with that, I'll turn it over to Colin McKellar.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Colin McKellar. I'm an incident meteorologist. I embed with a incident management team, and I'm hyper-focused just on the weather, just for this fire. I collaborate a lot with the local Boise office with local patterns, and we talk a lot and collaborate a lot, but I'm just focused on just the Middle Fork complex. So we had, a few days ago, we had some little bit of rain. At camp, we didn't have much. Up on Division Delta, which is north of the Bear Trap Fire, they had a little bit of rain up there. So it was really sporadic, really isolated. We only had about up to 0.1 inches. So it wasn't a whole lot of rain, but it nonetheless gave us that cloud cover, cooler temperatures, and higher RHs. The very next day, we kind of dried out and we warmed back up. So that one good day of cool weather, cool cloudy weather we did have. Now going forward though, sure, thanks. Now going forward though, we noticed that tomorrow on Tuesday, we will have a cold front coming through. The timing of this cold front is around 8 to 10 p.m. tomorrow night. And with that, ahead of these cold fronts, we'll see this winds increase out of the west-southwest. I'm really looking at those ridge top winds and exposed ridges, gusting up to about 28 miles per hour, and any aligned drainages as well. You guys have a lot of rough country up there. So anywhere that wind can align, it will also gust 20 to 25 miles per hour. Tomorrow, too, another variable that's critical to fire weather is humidity. And we start to notice that humidity values tomorrow drop back down into the upper teens to mid-20s on the peaks. Today, we're experiencing those low 20% ranges. We're also going to see, ahead of that front, an increase in temperatures, roughly mid-80s down into the valleys, and mid-60s, upper 60s up on those ridges. We will see some high-level cloud cover tomorrow afternoon into the evening with the passage of this front, and that will push out and clear out overnight. Now, this front is very dry. It's a dry front. That said, that red where we have those lower humidity values and those AM recoveries, that's what I'm looking at right now. With this front, we're going to see those AM recoveries get poor. Now, on the ridges and on the mid slopes, they may only recover to about 30% at night, which is pretty low. And we consider those within our thermal belt, or a layer on the surface of a mountain that just says higher temperatures and lower RHs. Below that, we'll still be in the 40s and have those higher RH recoveries. But that's one thing that we are looking at right now, is those lower RH values. Now, we are going to warm back up to upper 80s. We may see some low to mid 90s here in the valleys again, as a ridge of high pressure builds in as we head into the end of the weekend. The only saving grace that we have right now is that with high pressure aloft, we tend to get light winds. So even though we have the low RHs, the hotter temperatures, those winds tend to be lighter and more terrain driven, like they are in a lot of this part of the country, with just the diurnal patterns caused by heating. So with that, there is that concern. Again, dry cold front on Tuesday, tomorrow night. The strong south-southwest winds ahead of that front. The frontal passage at night. We'll see the decrease in wind speeds as we go on tomorrow. And after that front, we're going to dry out and we're going to warm back up. I'll be happy to take questions afterward, but that's what I got. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Valdez, fire behavior analyst, trainee actually, and I have a trainer that works with me. He's remote right now, but we have a couple other folks in our fire behavior team that are on site, and they look at different windows of time for fire behavior predictions and stuff. I'm mainly focusing on the kind of the duration here that Colin has for the weather. I work with Colin and take the weather obs and then factor in a few other things, and we try to give the firefighters an idea of what kind of fire behavior they'll expect for today's shift, tomorrow's shift, and maybe a couple days out. So we had a reprieve for a couple days. Fire really relaxed, calmed down, and gave the firefighters a chance to get some work done, which I'm sure the operation folks will talk about. We're coming out of that pretty strong here today and tomorrow for sure. These strong winds that we're expecting to see really are going to add that wind and oxygen that the fire needs to grow and also spread. This fire has been spreading by surface fuels, shrubs, woody shrubs, and heavier logs and materials on the ground burning in the understory, catching some of the standing trees, some of the beetle-killed trees in some areas, and then those will torch up. They'll produce spots. Some of those spots go out about quarter mile, half a mile, up to a mile, maybe more, depending on how strong the winds are. And then those will land in certain conditions, and they'll start another little small fire, and those spread, start the process over. With these winds, we'll see a version of that happen tomorrow, especially with those lower RHs. Now, we have one number up here. We don't have one number on the ground. The ground is going to have a variation. You might see humidities for some of our areas down in like, or up in like the mid 20s at certain points of the day. But we're going to see some areas that are going to get down lower than that number, now maybe to 15, 16. And when we get to those numbers, you can see here on this chart that we start to see some of these moderate burning conditions. That means that we're likely going to have opportunity for when those trees torch, they throw up those embers and land. That means that those embers have a high likelihood of starting a small fire. And that's really our concern going into tomorrow, particularly tomorrow with the winds, is as those spots get out a little further and the wind can carry those spots further, that the fire has opportunity to grow. We'll let the operations folks talk about where there's a lot of activity. But if we go to the map, I can kind of tell you some of the areas of concerns that I'm paying attention to and kind of talk about some of the fuels that are in those areas. Thanks, Ernie. Appreciate that. So I don't know if I have the pointer. I've been told I shake a little bit, so I'm going to try not to do that too much. I got it right here. Yeah, right there's perfect. Okay. So right up here in this area, this is Division Delta of the Bulldog Fire. The crews have been up there. They're barely getting established in there because they've been working around off the roads. We establish an anchor point, and then they work around from that. So this is an area where there's some fuels, and a lot of that heavier fuel this is an old burn scar, but that burn scar is already at this point 12 years old or 18 years old. That's an 18-year-old burn scar. A lot of fuel can grow in 18 years. So these fuels up here are it's really influenced by topography, but there's some spots out there they're working around. But as we see some winds tomorrow, this area is likely going to start to push out just a little bit. This is unstaffed, but this area is definitely going to start to push out. And the slider color green is areas that hasn't burned in the past, at least for quite a while. And there's a lot of deaded down. There's a lot of bug kill. The trees are really decadent, and they're susceptible to the fire that you guys have up there right now. So this area right here is really kind of one of those spots where we are looking at as it moves kind of up and then up along this, right along the edge of where that burn scar is. That's going to be an area where we're probably going to see some growth here over the next couple days. And then right up here, there's a lot of spotting up here up near Deadwood Reservoir. Luckily, they've done some great work up there, but there are still getting some spotting, and we expect to see some torching and then additional embers that are going to land and cause new spot fires, and we'll see some growth there. Additionally, there's some fuels that have caused some problems, and it's really not problems. It's just more so of they're heavier fuels, they take more work, and as the operations folks will talk about, that this is an area where fire behavior is going to be challenging. Right here on the Nelly fire, actually it's about right here. Sorry, I was off a little bit, and that's some of the fire that you can see today, right now, as you look up these draws, and that is producing fire behavior that we expect. It looks worse than it really is today, just because there is some smoke, but a lot of that is just that understory brush that's burning, and then we will see some torching. Fortunately for today, our humidities haven't been quite high enough where we're going to see a lot of those embers that are able to cause new spot fires. But tomorrow, yes, and then we don't need to go back to that weather matrix, but if you saw that there was a little line of red right there in the middle, those are humidities. Those are critically low humidities, and those critical low humidities are going to allow for some of those spot fires to continue to be a nuisance for our firefighters. So unfortunately, we have that pattern set up. However, as Colin mentioned, we're not going to have the winds. So some of those spots that have been problematic previously, we're not going to expect those to be quite as far out. So it's going to kind of give our firefighters a chance to identify some of these containment lines and really be able to predict where that fire is going to grow, more so than when you have a 25-mile-an-hour wind pushing it, and it really does add a compounding effect to what we're going to see for fire growth. I unfortunately can't stay. I got to get back over to brief some resources that are going to be heading out to the line tonight. I will try to get back if the meeting's still going, but it sounds like this is going to be a reoccurring meeting, and I can be back tomorrow or the next day. But all of these folks are very familiar with the fire behavior forecasts and some of the fire behavior predictions, and I'm sure the operations and some of the ICs are happy to take your questions about fire behavior. Thanks.
Good evening, Trevor Riding, Operations Section Chief. So I'll try to use landmarks and points that maybe you guys recognize a little bit better than just referring to our divisions, but it's a bad habit for me to just talk like I'm always talking to a bunch of firefighters. So if you have questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer them. So I'm going to start up in Delta where fire behavior was just talking. So right up here, this piece that's in what we call Division Delta, it's headed towards the Silver Creek plunge area. So what we've been doing here is just making sure this stays on the east side of the road and looking for opportunities that we might be able to go in there and try to prevent that fire from continuing that progression to the north. As we looked at the road, it's viable for us to continue doing that. However, as we approach the Silver Creek area, we didn't have a good feeling about having firefighters right there on the road. So what we've done in the last couple of days is you'll see this little pink line right here. We've picked a ridge where that fuel that he was talking about turns into more of a grass brush component. And they're starting to put that hand line in there to work it over towards Deadwood Reservoir. However, that ridge line kind of runs out, and we haven't really been able to pick anything up after that at this point. But that's where we're starting to try and keep it away from anything in the Silver Creek drainage. and make it so that our firefighters don't have to work in that drainage as this fire progresses with winds and RHs. As we move down into what we're calling Division Tango, which is just on the north end, right as it goes into the Forest Service land. You've been familiar with this. This has been in place for a long time. They went direct on the fire edge here, which means they were just putting out the fire as it was coming into areas they could grab it. Our crews have worked that all the way over and into Lightning Creek, I think is what it's called. And that's where this fire right here is moving around and could be some of the smoke you're seeing from town. As we look into that drainage, it's a steep, nasty drainage, rocky. We don't feel really good about getting crews into there. If something were to happen, it's hard to get them out and back to a place where we can take care of them. So they moved the hand line just out towards this way. And then we're looking at creating those lines in between the Bulldog Fire and the Nelly Fire to try and keep any of this fire movement from going towards Garden Valley and Crouch there. Speaking of the community, you've probably seen some of our resources out and about, a bunch of engines. We have 3 task force, so we're splitting them up into 3 groups. One should be up towards Crouch here, another one in Garden Valley, and then another one kind of along the highway corridor down here. So their intent is to just get familiar with the roads, take a look at the structures and the things that you guys have there. If the fire were to move into the area, they would know where they're going. They know the names of the roads. They're familiar with where and how to get there so that we can do that in a timely manner. So that's their intent. Hopefully they're talking to some of you and passing on some information so that you can get as much information as you need from our team. Moving into, so what we're calling Division Sierra Romeo, we actually have firefighters clear out here along the Anderson Creek Road, and then they're working right here along this pink line that comes all the way down this ridge into the Dansky Ridge drainage. And what we've done in the last couple of days is we pushed a dozer line from the road system here all the way down into the bottom and tied it into the highway. There's a lot of aircraft and work that's being put into that line. Yesterday, I think we flew a bunch of tankers with retardant to help us hold that line to keep the fire from going over that ridge. The fire has just kind of stayed put down in the bottom of this, but it is very active. And so that's something we're keeping an eye on and trying to make sure that it doesn't come out before we're ready for it to come out. So some helicopter work has been done in the drainage with that retardant on the outside as those crews put hose lays and different things down that ridge to help them hold that. In the next couple of days, we plan on firing, so using fire along that line and letting it back down into the drainage to hold that. We feel like that'll give us the best success of keeping that really active fire in a place that we want to keep it so that we don't have to fall back to any secondary lines that we might have back in the area towards town. Another thing, we have been using helicopters in this area to try and keep this from moving around too much on us as well. So that water helps keep it put and buys us a little bit of time to figure out what we can do tying those 2 fires together. Moving into the highway corridor here, over the weekend we had those hot, dry conditions, which caused us to do a little burning along the road here, and that's where you see that black line on the map. So those operations went really well. We were able to put that black line on the map. We feel really comfortable with all that fire edge right there. And today they actually burnt like 3 acres to really lock that in on the corner of that Dansky drainage. So that is all looking really good. That's allowed this Division Papa in Quebec, to focus their attention on any of this over here moving towards Lowman in the future. So they're gonna keep an eye on this stuff and look at it and see what we can do as we get more crews and resources in to keep that from moving anywhere towards Lowman. As we move around to Division Oscar, which is this giant stretch of fire along the ridge here. So we've been really fortunate, and I think what's helped out a lot is that Pioneer burn scar that happened in 2016. The fire doesn't really want to move around much in there. That we've kept that unstaffed. No one's been in there the entire time this team's been here, and I believe the entire time the previous team has been here. We watch it with aerial, so either by helicopter or we have drones with infrared they're able to keep an eye on that and make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So we're not leaving it alone completely, but we're keeping an eye on it with aircraft so that we don't have to put people up there in those trees, the snags that are left over from the Pioneer fire. And then moving up to what we're calling Division November, which is up here by Deadwood Reservoir. Because of the drive time, this 555 road that goes up through the middle is getting a lot of trees, burnt trees over the top of it. We can't get people through there safely without having to cut out a bunch of trees. So our drive time is through Loman and all the way around the outside, coming in from the north to get into this area. Because of that, all the crews that we have working up there are in this camp that we've set up on the north end of Deadwood Reservoir, which also allows them quick response to the fire every morning after briefing. So they can get out and start working this fire edge as they wake up in the morning and get done with briefing. They're out there within minutes instead of hours. Today we have seen some fire growth here. As fire behavior said, it did push out to the east a little bit. It's causing our crews a little bit of trouble to try and go direct on that. As that fire moved in to the infrastructure here, it didn't damage any of the buildings or anything around the dam or the campground because they had sprinklers going and prep was being done. So they were able to turn their attention to making sure nothing happened there, but also putting crews on the direct fire edge right here and trying to take that over and tie it into the bearskin fire, which is right there. They didn't have enough time to quite do that today. It sounds like we might be having to reevaluate what we're doing there and see if we can keep it with some other tactics. But we do have dozers in place there. Yesterday, scoopers were scooping off Deadwood Reservoir and flying it in onto the fire's edge there, giving our crews some time and cooling the fire off so that they can actually put that line in. Another piece of that is everything on the west side of the reservoir is very hard to access. It's taken about an hour and a half for crews to hike into that piece, but we're trying to keep that where it's at on those peninsulas instead of moving up here and trying to get to the north end of the reservoir. A lot of work, a lot of crews are going into there. One thing of note, we are going to have a strike team of military coming in to help us out on this piece. They're coming off the other fires that are up towards Cascade. So we are getting some help as far as that goes to try and see if we can keep this stuff where it's at instead of moving further to the north. As far as operations, that's kind of what we have going. We are trying to use the aircraft whenever possible to help those guys on the ground cool off the fire and let them get in there close enough that they can put some line in and keep it on our terms. So I'll be around afterwards. If anyone has any questions, you can hit me up.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Yonke. I'm the Air Support Group Supervisor with Great Basin Team 3, and I represent the Air Operations Branch. I'd like to give you a little rundown on what aircraft we have available to us on this fire and what we're using and to support the boots on the ground. Currently, we have 6 helicopters assigned and available right down the road in Garden Valley. We've also been able to pull in several helicopters from up the road in Cascade at their helibase. We have 2 scoopers available out of Boise, as well as several large air tankers available out of Boise. Now, we've also been able to bring in some large air tankers from around the region, Pocatello, and yesterday some as far away as Cedar City. As Trevor mentioned, we do have 2 UAS units or drones assigned to this incident, and they've been gathering a lot of intel and doing some things like that for us. Air attacks have been up as much as they can. We have 1 assigned and 2 others that are in Boise. And the VLATs, there's no VLAT close to here, and it's not really conducive terrain-wise to fly those VLATs. They need a lot of maneuverability, a lot of area to make those drops. That's really all I have in terms of the aircraft that is available to us, and I'm happy to answer any questions about how we're using them and things of that nature, capabilities, limitations, and whatnot. So just see me after the briefing here, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mindy Walters, and I am a Consumer Affairs Officer at the Idaho Department of Insurance. I'm here to just let you all know that we are a free service to you if you have questions or concerns about your insurance. And just kind of remind you, although we hope that the fire stays away from all of your homes and structures, if to prepare for something like that possible, you might check with your, review your homeowner's insurance, make sure you have all the coverages that you think you have or thought you have, because we get that a lot. I thought I had coverage for that, but I guess I don't. So you can talk to your agent or insurance company and just go over your policy, make sure again that you have everything that you think you need. We all have video cameras in our pockets, so if you haven't already, it's a good idea to take video of the inside of your home. That way, if you do have any damage, and the time of the claim is probably the worst time to try to remember all the things that you had that you want to replace. Also, if you have anything special or unique that's like antiques or instruments or artwork or jewelry, that kind of thing, those items typically need to be what we call scheduled. So they need to have additional separate coverage for total replacement. So if you have any of those kinds of items, again, you might want to check with your agent or your company, make sure you have the proper coverage. And then also make sure to document those items, because if you do have a claim, your insurance company is going to want documentation to show that you had those items. I will be here after. I'll stick around. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And also, we don't just handle homeowners insurance, but we also handle questions and concerns about all lines of insurance. So although we're here today just for homeowners, if you ever have any questions about your home, auto, health, life, travel, pet, you name it, we can answer questions and get you what you need. So.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chris Waverick. I am the agency administrator representing the Boise National Forest. I'm here from the Salmon Chalice, so I live and work out of Chalice, Idaho. What I want to talk about right now is something that in my sphere we think about from beginning to end of the incident through the next year, and that's the social political concerns. Last time we had one of these meetings, I talked about how the firefighters and everybody on this team is an ambassador representing the Boise National Forest. I want to talk a little bit about some more specific things and impacts that we're aware of to this community. So we have 560 firefighters here, something like that. So that's probably 200 vehicles. So increased traffic on the roads. These firefighters, they brief at 6 a.m. They're on the road by say 6:30. So hopefully we're getting them out of camp and you're not even seeing them. I'd hate to have a traffic jam in Crouch, Idaho. Another thing is gas, getting long lines at the gas station. We have a fuel truck out here, so the firefighters can get their fuel right here. I do see them still getting gas once in a while over there. They probably want to get like a sugary soda or something, but for the most part, we're getting gas here, so it's less of an impact to the fuel station. Road closures. So the highway's closed in a couple spots. We try to communicate that frequently. This team has a great liaison officer shop and public information shop, and they're doing a really good job coordinating with the local officials to make sure when the bus should or shouldn't go through, can or can't. And so we're trying to address those concerns too. Area closures. So we have lots of area closed right now. There's a big closure going all the way from the Middle Fork to almost the Salmon Chalice National Forest. We know that's a huge impact. August 30th, I believe, is opening a bow season for this Unit 33 up here. I understand there's 15 to 16 off-state tags. So those people are going to be wanting to get in there. We're aware of that. We're going to work with Fish and Game to see what we can do. But public and firefighter safety is paramount. So we just can't have people going into these areas that are on fire. Let's see, what else do I got here? So campsites along the river, boat ramps, things like that, they're closed right now. And we know it's probably people aren't coming up here from Boise, whether you want them to or not, they're not coming. And so we're aware of that sensitivity. We do want to get the fire off the road. One of the priorities we talk about is values at risk. And one of the values is that road. And being able to allow people to get back in there safely and enjoy the river, the campsites, things like that. So when we're talking about firing operations on the highway, that is to get the fire up and off of the highway. So we're dealing with less and less fire effects, rolling debris, things like that from the fire being above the highway. Let's see. And then the last thing I'll talk about is firefighting takes a lot of equipment. So retardant, dozers. When a dozer puts a line on the landscape, that can take hundreds of years to heal. And so one of the things we do is work with a team of, they're called resource advisors. So it's typically locals that specialize in things like fisheries, hydrology, archaeology, botany, invasives. And they come up with a plan called a suppression repair plan. So they'll actually map and document where all those dozer lines are, whatever impacts the firefighters are putting on the landscape to stop the fire. They'll document those, and we'll create a plan to come back and repair that. And that's when I say I'm concerned about social political concerns into the future. That work it'll either get done this year or next year, because sometimes we just run out of equipment. Nationally, there's a lot of fires. As soon as we're done fighting this fire, we might have to take all those dozers that could do that repair work, send them to another fire, then hopefully we can get them back next year. There's mechanisms to do it. We try to do it in real time, but it doesn't always work. But those are just a few of the things that we're thinking about as agency administrators and working with this incident management team on to make sure those types of concerns are being addressed. And I'll be here afterwards if people have other concerns that I'm not thinking of. I'd love to hear from you so we can start working on them. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, folks. I'm Brett Waters, the incident commander for Great Basin Team 3. It's good to see you all, and hopefully in the last couple of days we've been able to answer a lot of your questions. As you can see, there's been just in the last 48 hours since we talked last, there's been a lot of good work that's been done up there on this fire. We've got spike camps where our folks are able to be closer to the fire edge so that they can engage in managing these fires in this area and getting these lines in so that we can protect ourselves from them coming out on us. The other thing that we've got the Wapiti fire, we've got the Flat fire, you've got the West Mountain fire. So all these fires in the area, we are all coordinating. I'm talking every single day with the other incident management teams, and we're sharing resources and coordinating so that we can get everything that each one of us needs and support that way. We are the #2 fire in the nation. So as far as getting needs and getting supplies, we're at the top of the list, which is really good. Wapiti is the #1 and we're #2. That has really helped us get the resources that we need to be able to start managing these fires better. Our course is what our objective is to put this fire out, to manage this and to get you back to normal so that you don't want to have all these extra 500 or 600 folks in town, popped up here in a field, but get life back to normal and get the smoke out of here. That's our objective. We do that as a team, and the team is you folks, the community, the forest, the state, and all of the different agencies working together to support this mission. And that's how we're going to be successful. That's how you're going to get your life back to normal. And that is also done by clear communication. So we have established that. Please let us know if there's any questions that you have, there's anything that you think that we may not know about so that we can do a better job. We want to have clear communication with you folks. Please, we have an open door policy with anything that we have. We've got a great group of information officers and liaisons, and we want to make sure that we are answering all your questions. And thank you again for coming tonight. And I'll turn this back over to our PAOs.
Thank you, Commander Waters. All right, at this time, we'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions. anything anything that's on your mind, you can ask, and we will drag up the appropriate party to answer it for you. Okay, hang on a second. Where have I got a PIO around? There's one.
Okay, excuse me, I don't really have a question. I just want to thank this team. I mean, they've done more in the 4 days they've been here than all the other teams until now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, or are we? Do we give you such a good briefing you don't have a question for us? That's success. Seconds. Go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, will we be doing Monday, Wednesday, Fridays here for the next however long?
Yes, ma'am. Until you get
Okay.
tired of hearing from us, we're
Oh,
going to be
never.
here every other day. So yeah, till we get this thing buttoned up. Oh, she's heading that way. I'm sorry. We'll get you.
You said that you already or are working on putting in a dozer line from Anderson Creek Road down south to the highway. And is there a plan to go north from there also?
Yeah, so the dozer line has been put in from Anderson Creek Road down south to the highway. That's our biggest concern right now due to the fire behavior that's in the bottom of Danskin drainage. We are looking for opportunities to put either dozer line or hand line in to the north and try to tie that line in with the Bulldog fire to keep both the Bulldog fire and the Nelly fire from moving towards Garden Valley or Crouch or any of the structures over there.
All right. There are a bunch of us that are willing to go out and cut brush and do stuff like that, but I'm not sure that that's helpful because we're not what you'd call educated. So tell me what we should or couldn't do. We want to take string trimmers, big string trimmers out, and knock down some of the brush around the area. What can we do to help?
Well, I'll tell you, we genuinely appreciate your support. It's wonderful. You know, the feeling and the support that the community's given us. There's no need to bring anybody out there. We've got people who are trained, and I don't know about you, but they're younger and stronger and faster. And well, yeah, I'll leave that to them. But again, we thank you so much for the thought. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll take care of the hard stuff. Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
One thing that you can do for yourselves is look around your residence. We call it a defensible space. So anything that's flammable in and around your residence, we like to have about a good 30 feet cleared away. So like if you got a wood pile, shrubs that need to be cut, if you've got pine straw on top of your roof, those are the little things that you can do to help us and to also help yourself. So we've got 3 task force going around, and they're doing structure assessments, figuring out if it does come down. God forbid that it does, but we've got a plan in place. The local fire chief, Chief Paul, is willing to come out to your residence and do an assessment on each one of you that request it. You can call into the PIO shop. You can call into the liaison officer's shop, and we will be glad to pass that information on to Chief Paul. If Chief Paul gets overwhelmed, we do have a structure protection specialist that's willing to send an engine out. We don't really want to take that engine away from what they have in place, but we're willing to do that to make sure that you feel safe about how your residence stands if the fire, not just this one, but just like a training exercise for you in the future and what you can do in and around your residence.
Thank you very much. That's a much better answer than mine.
I just want to say thank you so much for keeping our town safe. I know like everyone's like said this so far, but I just want to say thank you. I have one question. If we do have to evacuate and if we come back, will like the entire like mountain, will it basically be like desert? Like will all the trees be gone? Like
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
like when we're like evacuating, when we come back, will like will Garden Valley basically be like a desert?
Oh, goodness, no.
Okay, good.
No, no. We're hoping that you folks don't have to evacuate. We're working really hard to keep this fire in its current footprint. The areas, and I'm not a subject matter expert. I'll leave that to Mr. Riding here, but the areas that the fire is moving into are not inhabited. It's not pushing toward the communities, not to say that it couldn't. I was always taught fire will find a way, so never try to second guess Mother Nature. But yeah, I would not, I think you should stay aware, stay ready to respond, pay attention to the notices that you receive. But I really don't think that you're in imminent danger, if that's any help.
Okay.
Sheriff, do you want to address any of the notification issues?
Yeah, so we do have an alert program that will, if we send out an alert, it'll automatically go to your home landline. You can sign up for that for your mobile device at alertsense.com. You can go on the website and pick Boise County and you can subscribe so you can get those mobile notifications. AlertSense. The other thing that we have at our disposal too is through StateCom and through FEMA is iPause. And so if we do have to do like a level 3 evacuation, then we will activate that iPause alert system, which will go out mass to every mobile phone and landline phone in an area, as well as we'll follow up door to door, either us or the fire department or somebody. You have to register your cell phone for the AlertSense. The iPause system, you don't. It automatically, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you'd made mention about having more aircraft available and stuff like that. I was wondering if Deadwood is able, if you're able to get and scoop water out of Deadwood with some of the aircraft, or where's your closest water?
Yes, all day today and yesterday, we've been using those 2 scoopers in the Deadwood Reservoir. They went at it about 6 hours yesterday, a repeat performance today. And just to give you a general idea, we pulled 200 and almost 250,000 gallons of water out of Deadwood Reservoir. So very, very quick load and return times. And tactically, they're doing an excellent job, especially up there in that Division November.
Very good. One more question. Could you guys explain the fire retardant? What is its main use? Is it to establish a line? Is it to extinguish a fire? Is it to put down a fire line? I hear a lot of things, talking to friends and stuff, and just I think everybody's a little confused on what the retardant is, and then where are you having to go get it at this time?
Okay, that's a great question. We use a retardant in different coverage levels, in different terrain and topography, and that's basically used to slow down the progress of the fire. Basically, what we do with it is slow the progress of the fire so that we can go in and get a good established hand line or dozer line, and it buys us time so that the fire doesn't, cross the lines that we're trying to establish. The load and return for the retardant is right out of Boise, or we can also go to Pocatello. There's several different places around the region where we can load and return, depending on where the aircraft came from. Okay, what you see there is a lead plane. And what he does, see that little, right, he's doing is showing that tanker exactly where he needs to drop that retardant on the line. And see how there's retardant right there by the dozer line? What he's doing is just tagging and extending all the way down that ridge line. And that lead plane is basically his guide. Air Attack will provide aerial supervision. He's way up high flying around. And then the lead planes and the either the large air tankers or very large tankers will follow the lead plane. And the lead plane kind of calls the ball for where you're going to put the line. And that's all tactically done by Air Attack.
Just to add to that, to explain, as you watch this video, you can see the fire's not on either side of that ridge. So as we put line down a ridge, and then we call it pre-treating with retardant. So if you listen to the fire behavior talk about when fire starts, it sends up embers. Those embers go out, they land, and then they start a new fire, basically. So that retardant's retarding that. So if an ember lands in the retardant, it's going to slow that down and give us time to catch those embers. So that's why we pre-treat it before we go in and try to stop the fire on that line. I'm assuming these questions are going to be for me.
Probably, boss.
I get to go first. Is there a timeline for the indirect line that you're building there? I guess it's Anderson Creek or Granite Basin into the Bulldog fire?
So that area is causing us a lot of trouble to find a good, so typically we like to have our lines as straight as possible. If we put too many corners in them, it causes a lot of issues because we can build up a lot of heat around those corners. So we're trying to find the straightest line possible, and that requires a lot of time and a lot of work of people actually hiking ridge lines, hiking into drainages, and looking at these things from the ground so that we can get a better assessment of how well and get an idea of how the highest likelihood of us being able to hold those lines that we put in. And so we can go and just pick ridges and put lines in, but the chances of us holding those are usually pretty low. So we're trying to do a combination of finding the highest chance of holding a line and the straightest line possible. So it's taking a lot of time to try and find that. And it's very steep, rocky terrain. As the video shows, that one ridge was easy for us to identify from the highway up. And then once we got on top and saw it down, they really liked especially the fuel on the ridge. So as you can see, it's mostly grasses and some shrub and a lot less trees. That makes it a lot easier for us because the trees get a lot of height, so they throw the embers a lot further. So we like to find those bare ridges and try to stick to those and make them as straight as possible, which, as you all know, ridges don't usually go very straight. So.
I just have a little bit more to add on the retardant. I do work with Perimeter Solutions, Phosgene, and the retardant is a low-grade nitrogen product like fertilizer. And when the fire and the heat hits the retardant, even when it's dry, it turns it into a carbon fiber, and the carbon fibers won't burn. So that's just a little bit more to add on that.
I really hope that this doesn't get into areas where there's developments and stuff, but if it were, what is used? Just water, or do the airplanes drop retardants on structures at all? What starts to really happen in those areas?
So as far as using retardant on structures, we try to avoid hitting any structures with retardant. That's a lot of force coming down out of the plane, and Steve can probably speak to it better than I can. But yeah, we try to avoid the structures, but we'll try to use retardant before it gets to the structures.
Will you be using water at all from the air?
Yep, that's an option as well, with the scoopers especially, and Steve might be able to take this better than me. I tend to stay on the ground, and he's more into the aerial stuff. But yeah, on the ground, we'll call for help like that. And he talked about having Air Attack available out of Boise. So Air Attack is that aerial supervision, and we talk directly with him, and then he coordinates all of those, whether it's water or retardant, and advises us on that.
Up in our neighborhood, they're putting ribbons, yellow, green. Are they, what do they indicate?
I'm not sure.
We're just right across the road here.
Yeah, I'm unaware of that.
Typically what that is, that's our structure protection folks. and they're marking the residents to show that they've been there, that it's been inspected, and the color of the ribbon is whatever they've got on their truck. So there's no code or anything like that. It's just fire flagging, and it's whatever they have available. Anybody else? Okay, you guys are too easy on us. I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll have our next meeting here, same location, Wednesday, August 21st. And we hope you all will come out and join us. I'm sorry, am I looking at that wrong? Yeah, it's the day after tomorrow, right here. Okay, and I'm sure that everybody, when you came in, you noticed the big tent city that we've got set up next door. That is, you might be curious about that. That's where we work, and that's our offices and everything. It's pretty much closed to the public. You know, we don't want a bunch of civilians walking around in there. But if you folks are interested, we'd be more than happy to organize a tour and meet with you and walk you through there, explain the various functions that are working out of those different offices. And what we've got set up is tomorrow evening at 5:30. We can meet with you at the front gate up there at security and just walk you through the whole camp and show you the various offices and facilities that we've got. We've got a sign-up sheet back at the back, and if you're interested in that, please sign up. We'd love to have you, and we're pretty proud of what we've got going on, and we're happy to give you a tour and share that with you. There you go. I like it. But hey, thank you all very much. It's a pleasure to be here and serve you, and we really appreciate your support. Good evening.